You know, looking back, I never thought my life would turn into one of those wild revenge tales you hear on Reddit or in those late-night podcasts. But here I am, telling you mine. My name's Alex Thompson, and at 40, I thought I had it all figured out. Born and raised in Chicago, the Windy City. Tough streets, big dreams. I started from nothing, really. Dad was a factory worker who lost his job in the 90s recession. Mom cleaned offices to keep food on the table. I hustled through community college, then bootstrapped my way into the tech world. Pause. Soft chuckle, man. Those early days were rough. Sleeping on couches, coding until my eyes burned, pitching ideas to investors who laughed me out of the room. But I didn't quit. By 25, I founded TechForge Solutions, a cybersecurity firm that specialized in protecting big corporations from hacks. It was the dot-com boom tail end, and companies were waking up to digital threats. I poured everything into it. My savings, my time, even skipped meals to pay the first employees. We started small, in a cramped office above a pizza joint in downtown Chicago. Smelled like pepperoni all day, but we made it work. Voice warms up, building excitement. Our big break came in 2010. Landed a contract with a Fortune 500 bank after stopping a massive data breach. Word spread. By 30, TechForge was pulling in millions. I hired sharp minds, expanded to New York and Silicon Valley. We went public in 2018. Stock skyrocketed. Suddenly, I was the young CEO everyone talked about in Forbes articles, the self-made genius revolutionizing cyber defense. At 40, I was at the peak. Married to Sarah, my college sweetheart, with 2 kids, Jake, 12, and Mia, 8. We had a beautiful home in the suburbs, overlooking Lake Michigan. Vacations in Hawaii, charity galas where I'd rub shoulders with billionaires. But success breeds envy, doesn't it? The board. Oh, the board. When we went public, I had to bring in these experienced suits venture capitalists, old money types from Wall Street. Guys like Victor Harlan, the chairman, a 60-something shark with a Harvard MBA and a yacht bigger than my first office. He smiled to my face, but I could feel the knives sharpening. It started small. Whispers in meetings, Alex is great, but maybe he's too hands-on. We need fresh blood. I ignored it at first. After all, I built this empire. TechForge was valued at $8 billion by 2025, thanks to AI integrations I personally spearheaded. We were untouchable, or so I thought. Then came the board meeting that changed everything. It was a crisp fall day in New York, our headquarters overlooking Central Park. I walked in confident, ready to present our Q3 earnings. Record profits, up 35%. But the room felt off. Victor sat at the head, flanked by his cronies. Elaine, the finance whiz who'd never coded a line in her life, and Mark, a smarmy investor always chasing the next trend. I started my pitch, slides flashing numbers that should have had them cheering. Midway through, Victor raised his hand. "Alex," he said, his voice dripping with fake concern, "we appreciate all you've done. But let's be real. You're 40 now. In tech, that's, well, washed up." Washed up. The words hit like a gut punch. The room went silent. Elaine chimed in, "The industry's moving fast. We need someone younger, more innovative. Your ideas are dated." Dated? I invented half our patents. Mark piled on. "Face it, Alex. You're yesterday's news. We've got a hotshot from Google lined up. 28, fresh out of Stanford. He'll take us to the next level." I stood there, fists clenched under the table, blood boiling. "This is my company," I shot back, voice steady but inside I was raging. "I built it from scratch. You wouldn't be here without me." Victor leaned back, smirking. Actually, it's our company now. Shareholders agree. Effective immediately, you're out. Severance. Minimal. Stock options? Vested, but we're diluting them in the next round. They voted right there. Unanimous, except for me. Security escorted me out like a criminal. As I passed Victor in the hall, he whispered, "Go enjoy retirement, old man. Tech's no place for has-beens." Long pause. Voice cracks with emotion. Old man. At 40. I drove home that night in a daze, rain pounding the windshield like my heartbeat. Sarah hugged me when I told her, but I could see the worry in her eyes. The kids asked why Daddy looked sad. That night, lying awake, the humiliation burned. Washed up? I'd show them. But first, the fall hit hard. The next weeks were hell. News broke, TechForge ousts founder amid innovation concerns. Stock dipped 10%. Ironic, since my dated ideas built that value. Friends called, but most ghosted. The board spun it. I was stepping down for personal reasons. Lies. My severance was a joke. 6 months' pay, no bonuses. With the mortgage, kids' school, we had to downsize. Sold the lake house, moved to a modest apartment in the city. Sarah went back to work as a teacher. I tried consulting, but whispers followed. Alex Thompson? Yeah, the guy who got canned from his own firm. Rejections piled up. Depression crept in nights staring at the ceiling, questioning everything. But in that darkness, a spark ignited. Revenge. Not petty stuff. No, something epic. I'd buy back TechForge, their precious $8 billion empire, and fire every last one of them. How? I didn't know yet. But I started planning. Scoured old contacts, liquidated what assets I had left. Quietly, I founded a shell company. Phoenix Ventures. Fitting, right? Rising from ashes. I reached out to old allies, engineers I'd mentored, investors who'd believed in me early. One by one, they joined. We worked from my garage, like the old days. No fanfare, just grind. Meanwhile, I watched TechForge from afar. The new CEO, that 28-year-old wunderkind, he tanked projects, chased hype like NFTs and metaverse nonsense while ignoring core cyber threats. Stock wobbled. Victor and the board patted themselves on the back, but cracks showed. I smiled for the first time in months. This was just the beginning. They'd called me washed up. Soon, they'd beg for mercy. Those first few months after the firing, they were brutal. I won't sugarcoat it. Mornings I'd wake up at 5 a.m., same as always, but instead of heading to the office, I'd sit in the kitchen staring at my laptop. Sarah would kiss my forehead before leaving for school, whispering, "You've got this, Alex." The kids didn't fully understand. They just knew Daddy was home more, but quieter. I'd force a smile, play video games with Jake, help Mia with homework, but inside? Rage simmered like a pot left on low boil. Washed up at 40. Those words echoed every time I looked in the mirror. Victor's smirk. The security guard escorting me out. The headlines calling it a graceful transition. Graceful my ass. But anger without action is just noise. So I channeled it. Phoenix Ventures wasn't glamorous at first. No fancy loft in the Loop. No ping-pong tables. Just my garage in the suburbs, a couple folding tables, and a whiteboard covered in scribbles. I liquidated what I could. Sold the boat we'd barely used, cashed out some investments that hurt to touch. It wasn't much, maybe $800,000 after taxes and fees. Enough to start small. I called in favors from the old days. People I'd mentored, engineers who'd left TechForge because they hated the new direction. First was Maria, my lead developer from day one. She quit the week after I was out. They want me to dumb down the AI for flashy demos, she told me over coffee. Screw that. I'm with you. Then came Raj, the quiet genius on threat detection algorithms. He brought 2 more from his team. We were 5 at the start, working nights while holding day jobs to pay bills. We didn't chase headlines. We went underground, focused on what TechForge had neglected: next-gen quantum-resistant encryption. The new kid CEO, Brandon Hayes, the 28-year-old wunderkind, was all about metaverse integrations and NFT security. Cute for press releases, but useless when real nation-state hackers came knocking. Our product? A stealth module that could retrofit into any legacy system without downtime. We tested it on dummy servers, broke it, fixed it, broke it again. Late nights, pizza boxes stacked high, coffee cold. One night at 3 a.m., Maria looked up and said, "This could be bigger than what we had before." I just nodded. Bigger wasn't the goal. Taking back what was mine was. Money was tight. We needed capital to scale. I couldn't go to VCs. Too many ties to Victor's circle. So I turned to the shadows of the industry. Old clients who'd trusted me personally. A bank exec I'd saved from a breach years ago. He wired $2 million quietly, no questions. A defense contractor contact. Another $5 million for exclusive beta access. Word spread in whispers. Alex Thompson's back, and he's building something lethal. Phoenix grew to 15 people in 6 months, then 30. We rented a nondescript warehouse in Naperville. No signs, just a buzzer. Inside, servers humming, whiteboards full of code, people who believed in the mission. Behind the scenes, the real war was in the numbers. I worked every angle, called in more allies, pension funds I'd helped secure years ago, mutual funds tired of the bleeding. One major institutional investor, a Chicago-based firm I'd personally pitched to back in 2015, quietly bought another 8% on the open market. They told me later, "We never liked the ouster. Felt wrong." Momentum shifted. Proxy advisors, those gatekeepers who tell big shareholders how to vote, issued a report recommending support for my proposals. The tide was turning. The board tried everything to stop it. Poison pill defenses, staggered board elections, even a last-minute strategic merger rumor with a mediocre competitor to dilute my stake. But shareholders weren't buying it. The annual meeting was scheduled for June 15, 2026, in the same New York ballroom where they'd escorted me out 18 months earlier. I flew in the night before. Slept like a baby. No nerves. This was closure. Meeting day. The room was packed. Analysts, reporters, angry retail investors who'd driven in from Jersey. Victor opened with his usual corporate speak. Growth, vision, blah blah. Then came shareholder questions. One after another. Why fire the founder who built this? What's with the stock tank? Victor sweated through his collar, fumbling answers. Then my turn. I stood up, mic in hand, calm as ever. "Victor," I said loud and clear, "you called me washed up at 40. Said my ideas were dated. You replaced me with a kid who chased trends instead of building security. Look at the numbers. TechForge is bleeding talent, clients, and value. Phoenix Ventures offers a path forward, with the same vision that made this company $8 billion in the first place." The room erupted. Applause from half, boos from the loyalists. Victor banged the gavel, face red. "This is out of order." But the vote was next. Proxy results rolled in. 58% in favor of my proposals. Victor removed as chairman. Board seats flipped. 3 of mine elected. The room went dead silent for a second. Then chaos. Reporters rushing, phones out. Victor stood frozen. I walked to the front. No gloating, just business. Later that afternoon, the new board, convened in a side room. I was invited. Victor was there, looking smaller than I'd ever seen him. Elaine and Mark fidgeted. The new chair, a no-nonsense woman from one of the funds, looked at me, "Alex, the floor is yours." I didn't yell, didn't curse, just facts. This company was built on trust, innovation, and hard work. You threw that away for ego and short-term hype. Effective immediately, Brandon Hayes is terminated. Victor, Elaine, Mark, your resignations are accepted. Severance. Standard package, as per bylaws. No golden parachutes. The rest of the board stays, but under new direction. Victor tried one last plea. "Alex, come on. We can work this out." Advisory role? Consultant? I met his eyes. "You told me to enjoy retirement. Now it's your turn." Security, the same firm they'd used on me, escorted them out, one by one. I watched from the window as Victor walked to his car, shoulders slumped. No words. Just the sound of doors closing. That night, I drove home to Chicago. Sarah met me at the door, eyes shining. The kids were asleep. She hugged me so tight. "You did it," she whispered. I didn't feel joy at first, just relief. The empire was back in my hands. But it wasn't about the money anymore. It was about respect. About proving that experience, loyalty, and grit still matter in a world obsessed with fresh blood. Phoenix Ventures merged fully into TechForge the next month. We rebranded quietly, same name, but renewed soul. Stock rebounded 60% in weeks. Old employees came back. We killed the flashy projects, doubled down on core cyber defense. Clients returned. The company hit $10 billion valuation by fall. But the real revenge? It wasn't the firing, the boardroom drama, or the billions. It was the moment I walked back into that headquarters, my headquarters, and saw the old team waiting. Maria hugged me. Raj shook my hand. They didn't say much. They didn't need to. I'd been called washed up. Now, at 41, I was just getting started. But the story wasn't quite over. There was one final chapter. The cleanup, the lessons, and the quiet satisfaction of knowing justice had been served. Looking back on that day in June 2026, when the boardroom vote flipped everything, it still feels surreal. The applause faded, the reporters scattered, and suddenly it was just me and a handful of loyal people staring at the future we'd fought for. No fireworks, no dramatic speeches. Just the quiet click of the door as Victor and his crew walked out for the last time. I didn't chase them down the hall or throw insults. That wasn't the point. The revenge was already done. Clean, surgical, and complete. The first weeks after the takeover were a whirlwind. We moved fast. Brandon Hayes, the young CEO they'd brought in to refresh things, gone before lunch. His office was cleared out that afternoon. I walked in, saw the flashy gadgets and metaverse posters he'd put up, and just shook my head. We packed them into boxes and sent them back with a polite note, "Best wishes in your future endeavors." No drama. Just efficiency. The team, my real team, came back in droves. Maria led the engineering rebuild. Raj took over threat intelligence. We killed the hype projects overnight. No more NFTs. No more virtual reality demos. We refocused on what we did best. Unbreakable cyber defense for the companies that actually mattered. Banks, hospitals, government agencies. The ones who couldn't afford flashy failures. Within 3 months, we landed 2 massive contracts. One with the Department of Defense worth $300 million over 5 years. The stock? It climbed steadily, passing $12 billion valuation by the end of the year. Shareholders who stuck with me through the dark days saw their investments triple. The ones who'd sided with Victor? Well, they learned a lesson about loyalty. But the money, the billions, they were never the real win. The real win was the people. One afternoon, about a month in, I got a call from an old engineer who'd left right after my firing. He'd gone to a competitor, hated it, and called me crying. "Alex, I should have stayed. I believed the spin. I told him to come back. No questions, no probation. He started the next week, same salary, same desk. Stories like that happened every day. We didn't just rebuild the company. We rebuilt the family we'd lost. Victor tried one last play. His lawyer sent a letter claiming wrongful termination and demanding a huge severance. We laughed it off in the conference room. Our response? A single page. Your resignation was voluntary. Per the bylaws you wrote, no golden parachute for cause-related exits. Cause? The board minutes from the meeting where they called me washed up were public record now. He dropped it fast. Last I heard, he was consulting for some small firm in Florida. Elaine and Mark faded into the background too. No big headlines for them. Just quiet irrelevance. At home, things healed too. Sarah and I had tough conversations those first months about the stress, the late nights, the fear of losing everything. But we came out stronger. The kids saw their dad not as a failure, but as someone who fought back with brains and heart. Jake started coding his own apps, inspired by the stories I told him. Mia drew pictures of Daddy's Phoenix rising. We bought back the lake house. Nothing flashy, just the same one we'd loved. Vacations returned, but simpler. No more galas for show. Just family. By early 2027, TechForge was thriving again. We hit $15 billion market cap. I stepped back a bit, brought in a solid COO to handle day-to-day so I could mentor the next generation. No more being the only one at the top. I learned that lesson the hard way. The board now had real diversity. Engineers, women who'd been overlooked, people in their 40s and 50s who knew what real innovation looked like. No more fresh blood nonsense without experience. One day, about a year after everything, I got an email from Victor. Subject: apology. He wrote about how he'd been wrong, how ego clouded his judgment, how he regretted the pain he'd caused. He asked if there was any way to make amends. I stared at it for a long time. Part of me wanted to delete it. But I typed back, Victor, I appreciate the words. The past is past. Focus on your family now. Take care. Sent. No more hate. Just closure. So here I am, at 42, telling you this story. Not to brag, but to say, if someone calls you washed up, too old, irrelevant, don't let it define you. Use it as fuel. Build in silence. Surround yourself with people who believe in you. And when the moment comes, take back what's yours, not out of spite, but because you earned it. Revenge isn't always loud. Sometimes it's just rising again, stronger, and letting the world see what real strength looks like. I was never done. I was just paused. And now, I'm exactly where I belong. Thanks for listening. If you've got your own story, keep fighting. The phoenix always rises.